If you're plagued by slow Wi-Fi speeds or have weak wireless signal or none at all in some areas of your house, then in this video I'll be showing you how I took my home Wi-Fi from awful to awesome with the Netgear Orbi whole home Wi-Fi system. Hello, welcome back to Switched On Network. I'm Paul FP, and if it's your first time here, this channel covers technology, gadgets and the internet, etc. So click on the subscribe button and the notification bell so you won't miss any great new videos. In this video, I'll give you a quick overview of the Netgear Orbi Wi-Fi system and how mesh networks are leaps and bounds better than using just a single Wi-Fi router or Wi-Fi extenders. I'll go over how to set it up and then take a look at some before and after speed tests in various areas of my house to see how much of a difference it really makes. Spoiler alert, it's awesome and it made a huge difference. So if that's all you needed to know, then open up the video description and click the link to find the best Orbi system for your house. We're also giving away a Netgear Orbi to one lucky winner. Details are coming up at the end of the video, so stay tuned for your chance to win. A mesh network like Netgear Orbi or Google Wi-Fi works by using multiple access points around your house, and the units all form part of one system, intelligently providing Wi-Fi service to whichever devices are nearest to each access point and that it's best placed to serve. The backhaul connection between access points, i.e. the way they're connected to each other, uses an additional dedicated and completely separate high-speed wireless channel, or in some cases a hardwired cable connection, so that each unit is able to provide the maximum bandwidth available, just as if it were the main router. That's why you'll see the Orbi calling itself a tri-band system. As well as the 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz bands for general use, there's that third 5 GHz band reserved for backhaul. Now by contrast, range extenders usually gobble up half the available bandwidth for the connection back to the main router, creating a disadvantage before you've even started. Or they sometimes use powerline plugs, which use your home's electrical wiring. I'm a great fan of powerline if it's the only option, as it's very clever and works quite well, but it'll never get close to a proper hardwired connection or a dedicated 5 GHz backhaul. Another advantage of a wireless mesh system like Orbi is that each access point broadcasts the same SSID, that's the wireless network name, so you get the convenience of just one name throughout the whole house and no more annoying upstairs, downstairs, garden, etc. And your devices should be seamlessly roaming between them as you move around the house, just like your mobile phone does if you're on a long phone call whilst doing 70 miles an hour on the motorway and crossing over county boundaries, moving from mast to mast. This is true even for the 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz wireless bands. You'll just see one network, and Orbi ensures your device uses whichever is best at that moment. To put the before and after results later in this video in context, I'm going to give you a very quick overview of my current setup. If you couldn't care less about my setup, there's no hard feelings, you can skip forward to the timestamp in the video description. My ISP is Virgin Media, which provides a fibre to the cabinet service, and luckily for me the cabinet is directly outside my front door on the other side of the street, meaning the final copper stretch is very short, just a matter of a few metres. I'm currently on the 200 megabits a second package, and the speed I actually get is usually around the 220 mark, so it's very good service. The super hub they provide though is pretty basic, and the Wi-Fi it provides is really only good for a very small house or flat. My Virgin Media hub is located in the living room, and the house is a 3-bed semi in South Liverpool in the northwest of England, with a downstairs of approximately 60 square metres and an upstairs of about 40. We've also had the loft converted into a 4th bedroom. The walls are quite thick, and the signal from the router downstairs in the lounge doesn't reach all areas of the upstairs, and where it does it's pretty slow. The signal up in the loft fluctuated from sometimes pretty good to other times slow or unusable. However, I ran an Ethernet cable up the old chimney from the living room to the loft while the conversion was taking place, which means there's a nice hardwired connection up there, into which I plugged an old Wi-Fi router and configured it as a secondary access point. The gardens on our street are very long, so the signal from the house hasn't got a chance of reaching to the summer house near the bottom of the garden. Connectivity down there is actually useful, as it's nice to be able to work from home down there in the summer, as well as to listen to music with a Chromecast audio during barbecues or on nice summer evenings. For this I ran another length of cable, armoured for outdoors this time, from the living room, and used yet another old Wi-Fi router I had knocking about to create a garden access point, which worked okay, but was a very old router so only provided pretty slow Wi-Fi speeds, and it wouldn't allow me to add a guest network down the bottom of the garden, so it's no use for visitors. So in summary, the house and garden consists of 3 access points, the living room Virgin Media router giving 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz networks, and 2 old 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi routers providing loft and garden access points. This did work better than just having the one router for the whole house in the lounge. However, we found that our wireless devices were constantly connecting to the wrong device, i.e. a far away one, when we were right by one of the others, which was very annoying. It is possible to improve this and try to emulate a mesh network setup by setting up the SSID and password to be the same on all boxes. But with other differences in the access points, that doesn't always work. It can cause problems that are hard to diagnose. I did speed tests in all the main locations in my house and garden where we use Wi-Fi, and then averaged them out to get an overall average Wi-Fi internet speed. Bear in mind that on that day, the speed I achieved with wired devices, such as my desktop computer, was 223 megabits a second. So the average Wi-Fi speed around the house of 39 megabits a second means that over Wi-Fi, I was only getting just under 17.5% of what was actually coming into the house. Some areas of the house were so patchy that when using our smartphones, we quite often ended up switching off Wi-Fi and using 4G data instead, which is ridiculous really when you've got an ultra-fast fibre optic connection coming to the house. That's especially true down here at the bottom of the garden, just outside the summer house. The old Wi-Fi router is so rubbish that switching off Wi-Fi and switching to 4G instead gives a much faster internet speed. So let's get the Orbi set up and installed. I've already done a video going over what you get in the box, so click the I just up there if you want to watch me unboxing the Orbi and see exactly what your money buys you. You can do all the setup of the Orbi via the app on your smartphone or tablet, but I preferred to do it on the big screen via the web interface. You can also install the Netgear Genie app too if you want some additional handy features, and more on the apps later. If your ISP gives you a combined modem and router, then the first thing to do is switch that to modem mode if you can. On my Virgin Media router, it's just a case of going to the router's web-based admin pages in a web browser and finding the option to set it to modem mode. That disables the Wi-Fi and all routing features, so it becomes just a standalone cable modem. If you ever need to switch it back on for any reason, the admin interface is usually accessible via a different IP address, in this case via 192.168.100.1. Before you do that though, if you have any settings such as a port forwarding or specific DHCP range, make a note of those settings so you can recreate them once Orbi acts as your router. Once that's done, disconnect all Ethernet cables from your current hub, or if you already have a separate modem and router, then disconnect and remove your current router. Make sure you have the Orbi router and not a satellite. This is easily identifiable by the yellow port labelled Internet, and it's also blue on top. Connect the yellow Internet port to your modem and power on the Orbi. If you also have other network hardware such as a switch like I have here, you can either connect this now to one of the other 3 ports, or you can wait until you finish setting up. Next, connect the Orbi either via an Ethernet cable or wirelessly using the default password from the label on the router. Open a web browser and type in orbilogin.com and then follow the prompts on screen. This will detect your internet connection and prompt you to do things like set a private admin password for your router, as well as give you the option to change your Wi-Fi network name and password. Quick tip, if you want, you can set your Wi-Fi network name and password to be the same as your previous setup, and that way you can avoid having to re-enter new details into everything that connects to your Wi-Fi. In my case though, because I had several different names for the 2.4G, 5G, loft, garden, etc., I'm creating a new unified name for the whole house. Plus, if your current password isn't that secure, take the opportunity now to come up with a really good, strong password. Once the initial setup is complete, you may also want to change the IP address of the Orbi to match your current network. This is only really going to apply if you have devices using static IPs on a particular subnet. In my case, I do have that, and the previous network IP range was 192.168.0 rather than .1, so for convenience now you can change that here. Now's also a good time to input any other port forwarding rules and other DHCP range settings you might want. Next, it's time to set up the satellite. From the web interface screen, click on Add Orbi Satellite and you'll be taken to a page with some instructions and advice on ideal placement. Press Next in the top right corner once you've placed your satellite and powered it up, and then wait for the ring LED on the top of the satellite to turn white and press the physical sync button on the back of the satellite. Then click the sync button on the web page on your computer. The process will take a few minutes, during which time the ring on the top of your satellite will light up one of 3 colours. Blue for a good connection, amber for an okay connection, but you should really move it a bit closer to make it better, and magenta if it was unable to connect. If, like me, you have the pack with 2 satellites, do the same now for the 3rd. You should now be good to go if you're using just the wireless backhaul setup. Or if, like me, you're planning on having a wired connection between them, then you may need to upgrade the firmware first to enable this feature, as it wasn't included with the Orbi when it first launched. Like a few other reviews I read, updating the firmware wasn't quite plain sailing. However, whilst I was struggling to do it manually, it just did it itself automatically, which was nice of it and meant I could then connect the satellites via wired backhaul instead of wireless. I prefer to use a wired connection, as wireless will always be subject to some degree of interference, and the signal can be degraded by things like thick walls, filing cabinets, and even reflective surfaces and materials, whereas with wired you can expect close to a gigabit. You might not actually have gigabit internet yet, but those internal LAN speeds can be quite useful right now for local traffic such as streaming HD or 4K video from a NAS or other shared hard drive, not to mention providing some good future-proofing. So now that everything was good to go, what do I think of it? Is it any good? Has it fixed all my Wi-Fi woes? Now, full disclosure, this is all my own honest opinion. I'm not getting paid for any of this, and Netgear didn't give me the Orbi for free. I paid with my own money. I actually got in touch and asked them if they'd be willing to sponsor the competition at the end of this video by providing the prize, but they said no. So this is a completely impartial review. If you decide after watching this review that Orbi is for you and you click the link in the video description to buy from Amazon, that will help support this channel, so thank you, but I'm not getting paid for a favourable review. Even with my extra Wi-Fi access points that I had before, with the Netgear Orbi I've seen a huge improvement. After my initial setup, Wi-Fi speeds were on average 281% faster throughout the house. I actually managed to improve that even further, and I'll get to that in a moment. I calculated that figure by measuring a before and after speed at all the main locations in the house where Wi-Fi is used, and calculating the percentage increase in each location, then averaging all those out. Obviously I'd advise taking the numbers with a pinch of salt, as every setup and situation is unique. Two of my old access points were very old routers, for example, using Wi-Fi standards which have far been superseded in recent years. But even so, that still gave faster speeds than not using them at all, so I was doing the before results a favour, if anything. Here in my living room, right next to the Virgin Media router, I was getting around 120 megabits a second previously, but now the Orbi has taken over, the Wi-Fi isn't losing anything and is giving the same speed as a wired connection, here 219 megabits a second. Moving upstairs to my office, where I was only managing a measly 9 megabits a second previously, that's now increased to 40 megabits a second. In the kitchen, the Wi-Fi speed has more than doubled from 21 megabits a second to 44, and at the top of the stairs, it's gone from 15 megabits a second to a far more respectable 124 megabits a second. And finally, as you'd expect, with the Orbi satellite in the loft fed by a hardwired Ethernet backhaul, we're now getting full speed over Wi-Fi up there, where previously it was only managing between 30 to 40 megabits a second. Now the results were great, but I did have some complaints, mainly that devices didn't always roam properly from access point to access point. I could be stood next to one satellite and get full speed, yet walk to stand by another and get a much slower speed. My phone had clearly not switched to use the access point, which was now closer, as if it needed to fully lose signal from the now far away device before it would go searching and connect again to the closer one. I looked online and the Netgear forum seemed to suggest that all three should be on the same channel to facilitate seamless switching. Using the Wi-Fi analyzer app on my phone, I could clearly see that mine weren't. Here you can see what happened when I was stood right by the summer house router, with my phone still clinging onto the very weak house signal. Then if I switched Wi-Fi off and on again, it would connect to the close by satellite and give excellent speeds. The same happened to a lesser extent in the bedrooms on the first floor of the house. Whilst contemplating this issue, I decided to change the setup by bringing the garden satellite back into the house and placing it in the middle floor in the room that I use as my office/studio, because although the overall speeds were greatly improved, they still weren't quite as fast as I'd have liked in the office and bedrooms, where Wi-Fi gets used a lot due to being on a different floor from the router and satellite in the house. Plus, as it was winter and the temperatures were dropping, I didn't want to leave it out in the cold anyway. As a side note, there's an outdoor satellite which is protected from the elements and meant to be mounted outside. It's not available in the UK quite yet, but it might be by spring, summertime, when we next want to use Wi-Fi at the bottom of the garden. Click on the thumbs up and leave a comment below if you'd like to see a review of that when it's out. So I moved the third satellite into the house and placed it in my office on the first floor, and after a reboot of the whole system, the roaming between access points started working flawlessly. This was even with all three indoors and much closer together, so the weaker far away signal would be a stronger one, and you'd expect any problems of not dropping off one and onto another to be worse. However, that wasn't the case. It now worked flawlessly. They're still not all on the same channel though. Now let's have a look at the test results with all three units inside. Now the speed improvement has risen to be on average 523% faster than before. I decided to treat the summer house figure as an anomaly due to comparing to a very old router from 2010, so it's been removed from the overall figures due to skewing the results. If I left it in, it gave a result of over 7,500% increase due to how much it was dragging down the before results. So essentially, with the summer house test excluded, this is like a test of having 2 satellites versus 3 in a house like mine. In the house, I saw a 280% improvement with router plus 1 satellite and a 520% improvement with router plus 2 satellites. So finally, I can now just forget about Wi-Fi. No fiddling, no slow speeds and no cutouts. The Wi-Fi is just there in the background, working so well that I can forget all about it. And let's be honest, that's what we all want from technology. With Netgear Orbi, Wi-Fi in the house will be far better for general internet use on smartphones, tablets and laptops, and it'll be good for video calling family and being able to walk around the house without losing connection. Time for some other quick comments and observations. Firstly, the Orbi app. It's okay, but it doesn't really add a huge amount to the experience I found. The screen showing which satellite a device is connected to doesn't always seem to work, which is a shame as that's probably the thing I'd find most useful. There's a very basic traffic meter, but forget it if you want to look at internet usage for a particular day, last week or by device. That's something where the Google Wi-Fi definitely beats the Orbi. We'll be doing a head-to-head comparison of the Google Wi-Fi versus Netgear Orbi soon, so subscribe to the channel to see that. The Orbi also supports parental controls via the Circle with Disney app, as well as letting you set up a VPN. I'm going to be doing in-depth videos on both of those subjects too, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to get notified when those videos go live. There's also support for controlling your Orbi via Alexa and the Google Assistant, although the things you can do seem more like a gimmick and it might cause a potential security breach, so maybe it's best to leave it off. If you'd like to see a video on this, let me know in the comment section. Finally, the router and both satellites also have a USB port for sharing printers, but you can't use it with a hard drive. Well, not officially anyway. That seems like a glaring omission. Who actually uses ready-share printing? I suppose it could maybe be useful for older printers, but it seems like a strange thing to prioritise. Surely most people have Wi-Fi printers or a printer that connects with an Ethernet cable. So it's a shame that you can't plug a hard drive in. After all, that's exactly what you do with the USB port on another Netgear product of mine, the Netgear ReadyNAS Duo. It would be a great and easy way of adding a network hard drive to your home network, although maybe Netgear don't want to cannibalise sales of their NAS systems by allowing this on the router. So in conclusion, I can definitely recommend the Netgear Orbi and think you should definitely buy one if you want good, fast and reliable Wi-Fi all around your house. There are several versions available, and the one you should buy depends on the size of your house as to whether you'll need 1 or 2 extra satellites. And there are 2 variations, the AC3000 with maximum speeds of 2.2 gigabits a second, or the more powerful AC3000 with top speeds of 3 gigabits a second if your budget allows. If you look in the video description, I've included a special link to view the page on Amazon in your country, which has all the available size variants laid out in helpful groupings with suggested uses. For example, a 2-pack for a 4-bedroom house with 2 floors, or a 3-pack for a 5-bedroom, 3-floor house, etc. Now it's time for the competition. We're giving away a Netgear Orbi whole home Wi-Fi system to 1 lucky subscriber, so if you'd like to be in with a chance of winning, then why not enter the competition? All the details are in the video description. Click on that link and that will take you to the page on the Switched On Network website where you can enter. There's no purchase required, and the form will give you various actions that you can complete in order to get more entries into the competition. For example, you can subscribe to the channel, watch or comment on the video, follow on Twitter, etc. You can also come back for a bonus entry every day until the competition finishes, so definitely do that because you may also see new or different actions added over the course of the contest, so you can complete those too for even more chances to win. Plus, if you refer your friends, you'll get extra entries each time anyone enters the competition from your referral. So open up the video description and click the link to enter now. Good luck! So that's all we've got time for. Please give this video a thumbs up, and if you've got any questions or comments about Wi-Fi issues, mesh networks or the Netgear Orbi in general, post them in the comments section below and I'll do my best to reply to as many comments as possible. If you've not done so already, please subscribe to the channel by clicking the logo on screen now, and you can check out some other videos in our series on the Netgear Orbi by clicking the playlist here too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.